Hi guys and welcome back to Switch Up. Today we're going to look at some hidden gems within our vaults of Nintendo Switch games.
Yeah, just before we start, I just want to clarify what we mean by hidden gems, because it's a word or a phrase that gets bandied about quite a lot. So these are games that are of a good standard that have basically been buried on the eShop, because it's quite convoluted these days, let's be honest.
Excellent, right, so let's jump into the list. First game for me then is an adventure title called Tardy. You can usually pick this up on sale for about $1 or pounds, nothing at all. It very much reminds me of a Space Quest title. You start out trying to avoid this person, you don't know who it is, and then he goes into hypersleep and you wake up on an abandoned ship. It's a bit like Red Dwarf, isn't it?
It sounds like it, yeah.
Everything about it, from the art style to the music, is lovely, and if you're a fan of the genre, I'd suggest checking it out.
My first pick then is a game called Aqua Kitty. This game is basically Defender, for those of you that remember that, and also has a second game mode that's quite similar to Iridium, another classic shooter. You take charge of a squad of kittens under the sea, trying to defend their milk mines from enemy invaders. I know it sounds ludicrous, but it's actually a lot of fun. So you have to stop your kittens from being abducted, hence the Defender vibe, and it's just very addictive. You can end up playing it over and over, trying to progress on each level.
And it's got nice co-op in there as well.
It has indeed, yes.
My second choice then is a game called Fell Seal Arbiter's Mark, which takes a bit of a Disgaea approach to the gameplay. You have the turn-based combat, you can see the different moves coming up of the different characters. I really enjoyed the story of this and the production values. It feels very high quality. It's a bit of a shame because it dropped when there were some amazing games coming out and some games that, in all honesty, we had to cover, so it kind of got missed. It was on a buy and avoid list and I recommended it as a buy, but again, I just want to give it a bit more attention. It's a very enjoyable game, very solid mechanics. You'd be quite familiar with those if you're used to this style of experience, but it's everything about it. It's when everything comes together. The audio's great, the visuals are lovely, and the core gameplay is very good. And a few people have mentioned in the comments as well that it's one that's often overlooked, so let's give it some attention.
Yeah, absolutely right. My next pick then is a game called Anthill. Now this actually comes from Image and Form, who are the company behind the SteamWorld games, and this was a game that they made before those but has just been released recently for the Switch. You are basically in charge of an ant colony and you have to arrange routes for your ants to walk, to pick up food. You have ants that will protect the others, like an army of ants, so to speak, that will look after your worker ants. It's just a very interesting game. You can only play in handheld mode because you have to use touch screen. You draw the routes for your ants with your finger, but it's a very fun game and it's relatively cheap as well.
And perfect for the Switch Lite. My number 3 pick then is a game called Terra Tech, which we played back at EGX in April of 2019. Now this is essentially, imagine Lego Technic or something like that. You're building different vehicles in a world. It has a Minecraftiness about it. You literally just drop into the world. You have certain quest lines. They're a bit vague to complete. They generally involve you building up a progressively larger version of yourself. Every time you defeat an enemy, you can take the blocks from them and click them onto your own vehicle. It's very compulsive and I can't really put my finger on why. Probably the same reason that just creating random things in Lego is a fun thing to do.
It has that feel of, you know when you were a kid and you were building a Lego model and you couldn't stop yourself from adding one more brick onto it? That's what it's like, isn't it?
Exactly that. So you end up with like mobile factories attached to the side of you and it's a decent game this. If you can pick it up on sale, I would suggest it.
Right, my next pick is a game called Raging Loop, which is a visual novel, but the story is absolutely fantastic. Now, if you don't like visual novels, it's not going to change your mind, and it's a very old school one in the fact that you read a lot of the time. There aren't puzzles thrown in. That seems to be the way that genre is handled these days. But the story is fantastic. So you basically end up lost in the woods and you go to this small settlement in Japan, and then this mist appears overnight, and the locals start a ritual called the Feast, where basically they start voting who to kill off each night to try and appease the gods, as they think is the way. And you take part in these conversations in these feasts, and then at the end of the loop you go back in time and you have the knowledge of what happened last time, and you have to try and do things differently. It's such a fantastic story. I really can't recommend it enough if you like this genre, and physically you can find it for very cheap now, for about £15.
Bargain. Okay, the next title for me is a game called Submerged, which released on PC a while back, but has made its way across quite quietly onto the Nintendo Switch. It's a 3D adventure title where you're traversing a sunken city, but you're trying to help out your brother who's injured. Is basically dying. So you've got that going on. You've also got a camera. So you're going around the city with your camera taking photos as well, but you do a lot of climbing of the buildings. So it's got quite a good verticality to it. But I just like the overarching strangeness to it. You don't really know what's happened or why. There's not a huge amount of nonsense and dialogue. And you go around in a little boat, just kind of visiting different areas, climbing these buildings, and just gradually trying to piece together, one, a cure, and two, what on earth's happened to this place. It's very cheap as well, so I should imagine you'd be able to get this one for a reasonable price.
I've never even heard of that one.
There you go.
Heard of it. Yeah, it sounds really good.
Hidden gem.
Yeah, exactly right. Okay, number 4 for me then is a game called The Aquatic Adventures of the Last Human. Now, this is a Metroidvania with a pixel art style, but it almost feels like a bit of a boss rush sometimes. You're constantly thrown into boss battles, and it's very typical of the Metroidvania genre where you find upgrades to your weapons. You're a submarine, by the way, I don't think I mentioned that, sorry. But it's just very interesting, and again, I think relatively cheap from what I can remember. It's not the best Metroidvania out there, but if you're looking for another one and you're looking for something a little bit different, I would recommend this one.
Has this got like a bit of a Lovecraftian style visual? It's the greeny kind of...
Yes, yeah, it has that kind of washed out colour. Yeah, kind of Lovecraftian monsters, or at least that vibe to it, if not the exact monsters. Very interesting game, yeah.
And the last pick I've got is a game called The Low Road, which was on my adventure game list, which absolutely nobody watched. And this is a really well-polished adventure title which sees you as a new intern for a very strange newspaper company. It's one of those titles that's really difficult to put your finger onto exactly what genre it covers. You spend a lot of your time investigating certain people. So for example, they might say, right, you've got a phone call from this person who's got this story happening in their lives. Do your research and then answer the phone. So on the table in front of you, you'll have all the information about them and about the case.
Yep.
And it's one of those where, again, if you wrote down notes on actual paper, you'd be much better. So you look at all these different notes, it's got times and dates, and you can kind of piece together what's happened and what's the real story. And then you make the phone call, and you've got dialogue choices within this call. And it can either go really well, like you can have kind of figured it out in your mind and asked the right questions, or you can have got it completely wrong and you balls it all up.
Sounds a little bit like Papers, Please, or...
Yes, that's by the guy that did that one, the Obra Dinn game.
Yes, yeah, and the Beholder 2
yes.
was another game that had a similar sort of, where you were working and you had to kind of answer questions and get things right.
Yeah, very much like that. And it just, for me as a gamer, an old school gamer as well, it feels a lot more rewarding when you've sat down and made a few notes and it pans out.
Yeah, that's always good.
Yeah, very cool.
Final game for the list then, this is Bendy and the Ink Machine, which I actually put in a list as well, funny enough, it went in my horror list. This is a first-person survival horror game where you play as an ex-employee at an animation studio and you have to go around, you've been invited back, and as you turn up, something's clearly not right. It's very, very cool. The one thing I will say that holds it back a bit is the combat is very clunky, so that's a shame, but it doesn't detract from what is a very good game.
Sounds like something's stuck in the paddle wheel.
Fantastic. I really like doing these hidden gems lists because the eShop has got, over 2,000 games now. There's definitely a few hidden gems in there, aren't there?
Yeah, for sure. And again, we're not saying these are the best games ever. We are just saying they are literally hidden on the eShop because there's so much on there now.
Exactly that. And for the one guy who's already typing, these are just pixel art crap, see you later. You know where the door is.
All's left to say then is a thank you to our patrons as always for their continued support, and to each and every one of you for watching our videos.
And as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys. See ya.